Well, the ceremony is 58 years old. The statue was first unveiled around 1957. Basically came, a destroyer left New York. The Bishop of New York blessed this statue. It came across an American naval vessel to Rossler Harbour. It arrived into Rossler Harbour and was brought up to Wexford, up to the crescent, and assembled. Again, it was great excitement in the town back then, because everyone was like, what is this going on? And they didn't realise the significance this was going to be. But it really only happened because of President Eisenhower. He had just retired as president, but he obviously had still supreme commander of American forces, and he was held in such high respect. So he decided, he was the one who pushed this forward with help from the Ancient Order of Hibernians in New York, Boston and Philadelphia, who said that this was something we needed to do. So the statue arrived and was erected, and for the last 58 years Wexford Borough Council has recognised this memorial event. This was a gift from the American people. It was a fantastic gift in recognition of a proud Wexford man. So for 58 years, the mayors of Wexford have always attended this ceremony, and they have always basically we've always invited someone from the government, someone from his family, and someone from the Defence Forces to lay a wreath at the statue. And of course, the most important year was 1963, when President Kennedy came, and he did exactly that. He laid the wreath on behalf of the American people. And I, in 1963, was 200 yards away from sitting on my father's shoulder, looking over at this great man. I don't remember it. My father keeps telling me he was pointing out, look at that man over there. And again, that's why I have such a... For me, the John Barry statue is a fantastic story, and a fantastic, again, two presidents of the United States, two of the most famous presidents of the United States, President Eisenhower and President Kennedy, came to Wexford, and wasn't that a fantastic event? The pageant issue was very important for Wexford. It was basically the ceremony before the John Barry ceremony, and my feelings on that was that it's all about bringing the history of our country, and also our relationship with America, to the children and the people of Wexford, and educating them how significant and important John Barry was to American history. So the context was, I asked Carmel Wallace and the Wallace School of Acting to put together a pageant that basically reflected the Boston Tea Party, because the Boston Tea Party was the start of the War of Independence, and the War of Independence was what John Barry was there for. This was his moment in history. This is why we have a plaque on the quay in Wexford, because of the War of Independence. He fought, was commander of the fleet, he was admiral, commodore of the fleet, ship's captain, and served with great dignity and great respect, and spilled blood for the American. It's important to recognise how important George Washington is one of the most famous American presidents ever. In American history, he is treated with such great respect, because after the War of Independence, he was asked did he want to become, for example, the King of America. He said no, because this was all about democracy. He gave up his command of the American forces, went back. And John Barry and George Washington were great friends. John Barry, one of his first battles in the War of Independence, where he captured the ship Civil. When the ship was brought into Philadelphia, George Washington himself went into the church in Philadelphia and laid the British Union Jack on the altar in front, in recognition of this first actual winning of a battle in the War of Independence. So the John Barry and George Washington, great link together. So George Washington basically was there. He was explaining how good John Barry and how important he was to the history. The fact that John Barry had appointed him the first ever commander of the fleet. His commission was Commission 001. So he was the very first commanding officer in the American Navy, and his context was explaining that. It's very important as well that they reckon this year was the 50th anniversary of John F. Kennedy's visit to Wexford. And the previous year, President Eisenhower in 1962 visited. They all visited because of John Barry. But the context, why did they visit? It was for John. It was basically to recognise John Barry. And President Kennedy is very important to Wexford. And the third actor basically gave his speech. He gave a fantastic speech in Wexford, 4 minutes and 10 seconds long. And I think if you listen to it and read the words in it, he talked about that how when people immigrated to a different country, it wasn't the end of them. Most of them in America went on to greater and better things. That there was, that families and mothers and fathers shouldn't, be so upset over this. That in a lot of cases, this was much better for the people involved themselves, and they went on to a better life. So basically, he made the point that, this was a generation lost, but they went on and did better things, and they were a credit to their town, their county and their country.